Hello, hi guys, welcome to the Two Docs Podcast. I'm Dr. Ali here.
And I'm Dr. Inky. Welcome to the podcast. Two medical doctors generally speak on stuff which are non-medical, sometimes medical. All right, so previously we're talking about legacy.
And how it's a waste of time.
Yeah, how it's a waste of time, how it doesn't matter, and how you should not build legacy in the first place.
And if you want to catch it, just rewind to last week's podcast episode. And also we've got a lot of other fun, interesting, and sometimes educational topics. Anyway, this week we're talking about something a bit educational. And so you know how in wherever you are, whether you're in an organization or if you are out with your friend, and sometimes they do something that's not agreeable.
Like?
Whatever it is, this is not agreeable, or they do something whereby you want to tell them nicely and give feedback.
I understand, yes.
And it becomes tricky because a lot of times it's easier said than done. Most people will just do a correction on the spot to quickly clear the air, but the person receiving it may get offended.
Yeah, of course lah, because it's their opinion, it's
their
point of view,
correct?
Right, and then you are somehow trying to correct their opinion or correct their beliefs.
Yeah. So this week we're going to talk about 5 ways to provide constructive, or how to do constructive feedback.
I think this is good.
So number 1, you have to be specific and focused. Because a lot of times when someone does something or they say something and we want to give feedback, we move into a very generalized area. For example, let's say if someone is constantly late for meetings, all right? And then when we want to approach them, we said, hey, Inky, I notice you're always late. Always late is very general. Then Inky will say, what do you mean I'm always late? I'm only late for meetings, I'm not late for other things. So be very specific. Otherwise, the person who's on the receiving end, they have feelings. They can actually feel defensive that I'm not what you say I am, even though actually what they did was a segmental thing that needs to be highlighted.
Okay.
So be as specific as possible when you want to provide feedback, so that you're saying, I'm only addressing this issue and what was the impact behind it.
Okay, so instead of saying that, hey, you're always late, you can say, hey, today you were late for the meeting. Why were you late? So is it something like that?
Even that can be a bit confrontational for some people. So giving it an impact would be like, hey, today you were late for meeting. So 10 of us had to wait for you for about 20 minutes. So you're saying there is an impact, that there was people who are waiting and there was time wasted. Or you were late for the meeting, we were excited for the last 20 minutes to hear what your input was, but we had to discuss other things which could not have actionable plan without your feedback or your input. So you're trying to give context. A, be specific. B, give a context of what this thing has impacted because of this action or what you have said. Similarly, if someone says something that hurts someone else's feeling, and the approach will be, hey, Inky, what you said just now, it can hurt other people's feelings. So they know it's not personal, it's just the impact of what they've done, and we're just here to provide you with the feedback.
Okay.
Rather than say, Inky, I noticed your mouth.
You always
got something bad to say.
Okay.
Open only, got some colorful letters coming out.
Understood.
Alright, so number 1, be specific and focus. Number 2, choose the right time.
Choose the right time.
Choose the right time and place. I mean, same thing. If Inky comes late into a meeting, it would be very confrontational.
Yeah, if you would have asked me then and there.
Then.
Okay.
Hey, Inky, why late again? Always late, are you? He's already, he's going to be facing a whole board of people staring at him, and he already knows he's late. You don't have to remind him he's late in front of everyone. Because that just basically just escalates the situation, that makes it a bit more uncomfortable and makes it less receptive. Again, today we're talking about how to provide constructive feedback.
Yes.
I mean, that was called giving feedback. Immediate feedback. In fact, it can also be very effective feedback. It's not constructive enough.
Okay.
I think constructive at the end of the day is about being positive, giving it so that it's well received and there will be a positive outcome that comes behind it.
Okay.
All right. So again, number 2 is
time and place.
Time and place. Number 3, use the context of I. So when I'm providing feedback, or I want to say something about it, use I. That means I is my personal opinion on this, rather than saying we all think. Because again, there's a collective versus a personal voice. In a grand scheme of things, the person who's receiving the feedback can just feel, okay, it's just your opinion, Ali. I may take it, I may not take it, but it's just your opinion. But if you say things like, we all feel, although it's only just myself, but if I use the word we all feel, then he'll be like, who else? He will be in this position where he feels everyone else is against him.
So he feels a little bit defensive.
Constructive feedback is all about making it open and receptive. Anytime when it comes very overbearing, the person who's receiving it will always feel defensive. All right, and I think I've been in that position before. Always like to use the word we rather than I. Again, a lot of times we feel, or I feel, it's like, see, just use me for no reason. A lot of times I feel is because I want to make it seem less judgy. Like it's just a very, very common thing, but lo and behold, there were studies that show that when we use this kind of context of we, the recipient actually feels like as if they are wrong in everyone's eyes.
Okay, I understand. Now I understand. So use I, don't use we.
Use I a bit more rather than we.
Okay.
Unless, of course, it's a collective voice and there's evidence behind it. Right. Method number 4, which is quite commonly used, it's called sandwiching the positive and negative.
Oh yeah, I think almost everyone does that.
Not everyone does that.
No, I would say a lot of people do it, and they actually teach this particular method to sandwich.
Yes, but it's very effective.
It is effective.
It's very effective. You butter up before you hit them, then you butter them up again.
So what is the sandwich technique?
All right, sandwich method will be like, Inky, you look very handsome today.
Okay,
Let me tell you something about what happened today. And at the end of it, no matter what it is, Inky, I still think you're handsome today.
So you give the good news, or you give something positive.
Yep.
Then you hit them with the constructive criticism.
Yes.
And then you give them something positive.
Positive
a
again.
little bit positive at that.
Of course, it's not always that simple. You go up to everyone and insincerely tell them they're handsome. Anyway, you're good looking, alright?
I feel a constructive criticism coming.
No, that was sincere. There's nothing to sandwich yet. But this, as you said, is a common thing that a lot of people do teach. But in practice, sometimes we forget. Especially in the heat of moment.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Because again, when someone wants to give that construct or wants to give feedback, sometimes they themselves may feel very agitated with what has been said or what has been done by the other party, and just let loose like that. So do it immediately. Use very general terms, and then might go straight into the deep end of it. So learn how to do sandwich. Make sandwich.
So go to the kitchen, learn how to make a sandwich.
However, nowadays there's this thing called open sandwich.
What's an open sandwich?
Open sandwich is one slice of bread and then the topping. So you give the bad, then only give the good.
You give the bad first, and then only you give the good.
You know, I mean just out of topic. I'm just saying in context.
Oh, okay. No. You
have to go traditional sandwich.
No. You go traditional sandwich. You don't do the whole deconstructed sandwich.
Yes.
Whereby
it's just the meat and nothing else.
No, you put the meat there, but then the bread is on the side, and then you have to go look for the bread by yourself. Okay.
Yeah. So almost like saying, Inky is handsome. Just write on a piece of paper. Put here.
Read this after I've given you the criticism.
You can read it if you want. But let me tell you what happened today. Alright, so that's called a deconstructed sandwich. Okay. Open sandwich would mean, no, I talk bad about you first, then at the end only I compliment you.
Okay.
So always compliment or always say something nice. Don't worry, it doesn't need to be a compliment. It can be something good that they've done for the day. Then only you move into the construct. Alright. And then the last one. Tip number 5. Encourage dialogue.
Encourage dialogue.
Because a lot of times it was a person's opinion or action. And coming from a person who wants to give constructive feedback, also it's my own personal view and what I think, my own interpretation. I think more than ever, people should start doing constructive dialogue. Like, you're late, alright? So he's late, but talk about general traffic. try to find where this lateness is, and then talk about maybe it's something that has to do with home, maybe Inky suffering from insomnia, we don't know. But when we encourage dialogue about something, lo and behold, that constructive feedback can actually come back to us also. As in, like, we thought we were right, so we were trying to say something, but we could learn something back in return.
So what are the tips and tricks to get someone to engage in this dialogue with you? Example, if you have said something to criticize the other person, even sometimes when you've said it in a nice way, some people actually naturally become a little bit defensive. So how do you draw them out into an open dialogue?
Right, so generally you have to ask very open-ended question. Don't target the action that they've done. You can actually go general in other topics first. So again, another way of sandwiching is talk about general topics of other things, then only come back into this area, or in fact, don't even come to this area, just talk about that first. When there is a comfort level of discussion, then only reintroduce the topic a little bit later and say, hey, by the way, I've also noticed this might have been happening. So it's just about a distraction. You distract them by talking about something else that's general. Let's say, for example, let's talk about the whole lateness thing again. Okay? Talk about whole lateness thing again. So talk about this in general. Oh, you know, our Malaysian culture, right? Oh, we all love to be late, man. It's always about, on the way equals
I haven't left from home.
Haven't left at home. 5 minutes equals, another 1 hour away. That kind of thing, Although it's a Malaysian culture, most of the time we don't really care about it. But sometimes, or just ask, when's the last time someone did that to you? So let them be the one who talks about their own experience about being late or the Malaysian being late culture. Then reintroduce it back on the back end later. Do you have any ways in approaching this
to get someone to open up? Yeah. So generally, one of the ways is to kindly ask them to explain what got them there what got them in that situation in the first place. So basically, you're allowing them a way to stand up for themselves.
Okay.
All right. But again, be non-confrontational, right? Use nice language like what you mentioned, sandwich it, use I, and then naturally they will also feel less defensive, and then the way they answer will become less confrontational or less aggressive, right? But of course, if let's say they do get defensive or do get aggressive, so again, you have to slowly divert the language used or the forcefulness used, right? As long as as long as you are kind to them, right? You ask proper questions, and and you feel like you make it look like you really want to find out what is actually wrong with them instead of attacking them. Naturally, they will actually put their guards down, and then most of the time they will actually open up.
Yeah. I think this rings very true with the quotation between being right and being kind. Choose kindness.
Yeah.
Choose kindness, because it doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong. Choose kindness, approach with kindness, and then the problem might find a solution. And it doesn't matter who's right or wrong, because at the end of the day, constructive feedback is about finding solutions.
That's right.
It's not about pointing out who's wrong.
Yeah, it's not about finding who's right and who's wrong. It's always about finding that middle ground.
Yeah, the middle ground, which is usually something that needs to be solved, and that's it. So again, choose kindness. All right, so recapping the 5 things about how to provide constructive feedback. Number 1, be specific and focus. All right. Number 2, choose a correct place and time. Number 3, use I rather than we and all of us, or the famous one, they say. They say.
They say.
Number 4, sandwich. Balance the positive and negative. And number 5, encourage dialogue. All right. Have you been in a position whereby you find it difficult to give constructive feedback? I think more than ever, there's also a generation gap.
Why?
Once upon a time, when people want to give us feedback, what did they do?
I don't know. They just tell us straight in the face.
Straight in the face, right?
Yeah, they tell us straight in the face, and then
and the famous one, Dr. Inky, which college did you graduate from?
Yeah. I think that's one of the worst.
From there, no wonder. ... And then you'll be like, huh? What? Right? So, well, these days, if we use the same method, people just don't like you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the problem doesn't get solved. Alright, so again, hope you guys found these 5 tips useful on how to provide constructive feedback. We'll be back again next week. Have yourself a good weekend.
Bye-bye.